Hi, this is the video for Tuesday, March 16th. So today we're moving into a realm that's really abstract, but we're still talking about advertising. The argument that I'll make today is that advertising, when it's really harmful, is when you advertise somebody else to be a certain way, and especially when you do that to a whole group of people. When you do that, you're in the realm of bigotry, racism, classism, sexism, this idea that you can characterize an entire group as being this kind of thing. That is what's problematic about prejudice. So we're looking into that today and tomorrow, and it gets pretty, like I said, abstract. We're talking about advertising, but in this sense that is really challenging. Today we're going to look at a particular concept of that with regards to American Indians as our example, but there's so many examples, unfortunately. And then tomorrow we'll look at the specific example of Derek Black, who was raised to be a white supremacist and left that movement. Advertising when it's really harmful is the concept. We're still in investigations. The day here is the hardest of all in terms of its stem, because I've been promoting this idea that research will help you avoid scams and judgments, but that's not the whole truth. That's not all of it. Because the truth is, as I say on these slides, the shared knowledge in a community or even on the internet, right, can be wrong. So if you lived in the 1850s and you wanted to research whether American Indians were being oppressed, how would you research that? The entire community around you would have believed that necessary steps were being taken to help, that would have been the word, right, American Indians find a good home. If you lived in the 1850s, specifically in Charlottesville, in this place, and you wanted to research whether slavery was good or bad, where would you have researched that? The entire community around you would have believed similar things that we now know, looking back, were wrong. So often, our community of knowledge, the place where we live, and that can be an internet place too, it doesn't have to be just physical space, we can all be wrong together. And that's both scary and empowering, because you can set out to believe your own principles and morals. You can develop those. But then you also have to be really careful about learning from your community around you. And that includes school. That includes every community. We live in communities of knowledge, and a whole community can be wrong. So how do you deal with that? Here's one example. The American Indians who lived in this nation and still do live in this nation were in the 1800s subject to this advertised myth. The myth was called the noble savage myth, and it was this idea that Indians are innocent, noble creatures who have not been corrupted by civilization. This can't be right. If you do this to a group of people, if you say they are this way, you dehumanize them. And this myth in particular is really pernicious or evil, because it suggested that Indians aren't really human and can't really be corrupted by human civilization because there's something else. It also advertised the whole group as somehow being responsible for helping the white man, sort of that larger concept of settlers, seeing the error of his ways. So we asked, what is wrong with this thinking? In this image, you see a political cartoon where the noble savage is responsible for helping the white man. This puts all of the moral integrity onto the noble savage, and it takes anything away from the person who is oppressing that person. If you say it's their fault, they're the victim, they really don't have many places to go. Yet this was the way that American Indians were viewed. There's also this view, another myth, of the vanishing Indian, which suggested in a community of knowledge that American Indians were destined to be gone. So, now that they're gone, oh well. It's flatly wrong. We looked at an example of how native life lives on in really powerful ways. We looked at our own local community in the Monacan Indian tribe that's still really important to our community, based around Livingston. Indians are not gone. They haven't vanished. But the myth that they have gets the community of knowledge believing that there is a wrong narrative to be told about American Indians. So we got to this article, Why Do We Believe Things That Aren't True? And if you're checking out the slideshow, skim the article. It's basically saying we believe things that come from our communities of knowledge. We don't have enough room in our minds to be experts at everything, so we just trust people around us. So What is something you believe deeply, even though you don't have much knowledge of it? There's a lot of things I know that are true for me. I believe what I'm told because I trust the person telling me. That is what we're trying to fight a little with the STEM today. Before knowledge is shared, while knowledge is shared, and if knowledge is shared, I'm encouraging you to think about it from not necessarily a positive perspective, which is so often how we do think about knowledge. We're sharing knowledge, it's great. I want you to think about it from a critical lens, where actually sometimes the knowledge that's being shared with you is something you should call into question. And I don't mean specifically in your community, I mean in our community, the whole human community. Thinking about some things that have always occurred to you to not be completely right. That's the challenge. That's the abstract challenge for today and tomorrow.